Hi guys, welcome
Hello.
to our weekly Facebook Live. It's going to be 100 degrees in the valley today, so we're going to talk about fall.
Right.
Because why not?
It only makes sense.
But first, I want to remind you guys, we have our scrappy bag.
It's called a snappy bag.
Snappy bag.
Do not disturb. Sorry.
Snappy bag bonanza happening this Saturday.
So basically, let me explain how that's going to work. We're going to have sewing machines set up. You only sign up for a 1-hour time slot, and you're going to learn how to make these awesome little snappy bags.
See, it has tabs, they pull open, then they
This
pop
is the
closed.
big one. Stacy's been playing with all kinds of things. So this is the standard size, and I think this is what you guys are going to make in class.
But this is your coin purse size. It's called binding clips.
Or binding clips. And then let me see what else. Oh, she also made
cell phone and
glasses cases.
Sizes.
So anyway,
and then one with toweling
because it's Stacy. So anyway, it's super awesome. All you need is
pockets.
Yeah, she added pockets. Well, because she sent me a picture with this last night. She put her glasses in it and her ID here.
Look at that.
So brilliant. Anyway, she's going to show you all this fun stuff on Saturday. There's a class at 10:30, one at noon, and one at 1:30. We're going to have machines set up. You just need a couple of fat quarters and some.
She'll have the snappy stuff.
Yeah, she'll have the snappy stuff for you. It's going to be great. So
it's like $10.
I think it's $10. So sign up, learn how to make some really awesome bags out of really anything
whatever you
left
got
over in your room. So,
but when you're done, you should be able to make all sorts of bags. So
it's going to be awesome.
Check that out.
Anyway, she made it out of the fabric we're featuring today, which is
kind of
awesome. This one. Well, this one's the same as the quilt. Anyway, we're going to jump into some fun projects from One Crazy Sister.
Janet Nesbitt.
Janet Nesbitt's her real name. She also does some of the folk art flannels, which we love from Henry Glass.
All sorts of things.
But this is her fall quilt called Blessings of Home. And
this is the traditionally pieced.
This is traditionally pieced for all of us traditional piecers who are like, I like half square triangles. I can do that.
This is her crazy piece.
This is craziness. So Sarita sent me home with this kit maybe a month ago.
I'd like to show it to you.
And you guys know me. I dive into everything. I was finally brave enough to start working on this yesterday.
There are a cajillion different fabrics.
Lots of fabrics. And
it's pretty awesome.
For the first time in my life ever, I read through the entire pattern probably twice before starting. Because this is a totally new method of piecing for me. And I was being brave and I had to understand. So I learned this yesterday. It's going to be great. We're going to do it today. So if you want to know how complicated it is, that's how it works. Anyway, so what you do for this kind of crazy piecing is she has the designs written in there. We're going to make some wonky churn dashes and some wonky triangle log cabins. So what we're going to do here is the first thing we do is we trace the pattern onto freezer paper. So freezer paper is really, really important with this because it's easy to trace onto, but also it has a temporary adhesive, which is awesome because see, it stays stuck to the top layer of fabric. And so it's really easy to cut through a layer of 10 fabrics that you've got stacked up. Mm-hmm. So I traced this churn dash 4 times. I had 2 stacks of light fabrics and 2 stacks of dark fabrics. And I went through and I cut them all 4 out. And then what I did is I did a little bit of swapping. So I put all my light fabrics in here for the churn dash, which is why you can see my outline and my writing is in pink. And then my pinks over here, that's my light fabric. That's the outside in the center.
And the darks.
So this way we get some dark borders and light churn dashes, and here we get some dark churn dashes and some light borders. So that's a way to make them a little scrappy. Then when I pull it off the pile, I get something that looks like this.
One block.
That's going to be
her
one
blocks
block.
Stacked up. So this is our churn dashy block.
Okay, and then let me show you how the other block works. So then we do the same thing with our little log cabin. I traced it 4 times. I have my light and my dark, and then I swapped it. So this one has my dark, my light, and this is my darks.
And then light and dark.
And then they go here. But here's a really fun thing, because if I pulled all these off, the top one would all be the same. And that can make making things scrappy difficult. So what she has you do is take the top one off of your number 1 stack and move it to the bottom. And take the top 2 off your number 2 stack and move it to the bottom. Take the top 3 off your number 3 stack and move it to the bottom, etc.
So forth.
Except for number 7, you can leave it alone because it's going to be different because we moved number 1. And then that way I can work right off the board and it's all going to be different.
And you're not all trying to shuffle every single block. Because controlled scrappy is hard.
Right. And the nice thing is these fabrics all go together anyway. So we're fine.
Yep.
So
this is our
there's some really fun things in there. But let me show you how to do this, because if you've been piecing for any time at all, you probably realize that we don't have a seam allowance in here.
Correct.
Right? Well, you can't just cut out a shape and sew it back together and have it be the same thing, right?
Nope.
It doesn't work. So this is much bigger than what it's going to end up as. It's going to be a 6.5 inch turn dash. And I'm going to show you how we turn it into that block. So I'm going to show you the method. Liz hasn't seen this before, so we're going to teach her while we're at it.
Yeah, I'm learning here with you.
So we're going to start by sewing units together. So this is a unit, unit, this one, this one, this one, and this one. If I still had my thing out, it would show A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. We can do the alphabet, right?
Hopefully.
So what you're going to do is, some of these are going to fit really well. Like these two are pretty much the same. It's a nice straight line. You just center the smaller piece on the larger piece and sew a 1/4 inch seam. And I'm going to chain piece because
she's compulsive.
Now you'll notice
some of these are wovens.
Some of them are woven, but look how much smaller this is going to be, because think about it. When we sew this in, I'm going to be starting here and here. And so when Liz presses this, I'll have her show you just how much this piece is going to shrink.
I'm pressing open, correct?
Yeah, you can press open or you can press to the smaller piece. With the log cabins, I definitely press to the side because it made life easier. Okay, but we need to keep this the right shape.
I have to press open because that's
so that we know where things go.
Oh, sorry.
And I'm just going to work my way around the board. And Liz is going to press for me and put it right back where it goes.
Because once I press it, this is where we love our design boards, you guys.
It is.
They can just go right back, and then she can just keep.
I can keep working my way around. And creating. This A section is my only one that's 3 pieces.
Guys, do you see this? How much smaller that is? We'll be trimming this in just a minute.
Sorry. It's going to work out. But it is definitely not your everyday piecing method. That being said, they turn out really cute. I made a bunch of these this morning. You know, had to reinforce the knowledge before I came to show all of you. Since I only learned it yesterday.
Okay, the other fun part of this, you guys, I'm going to show you, because these were all cut wonky that way. One of the background print on this block,
at one time. They were all cut at the same time.
They were all cut at one time wonky. The background print on this block is a text print. And because we were able to cut it wonky, the text is all going to be oriented the same direction. So for those, our OCD friends, this is great.
It makes me happy.
Because, you know, Jen and I
we have issues. But that's okay. Yeah, Mom was like, oh my goodness, can't believe you did it that way. And I was like, first of all, had this been normal piecing, I still would have done it that way.
Yeah,
second of all, this made it even easier.
My text has to orient. It's just how I am.
Right?
Jen's going to tell me how to trim this in a minute, but we're going to let her get this done.
Once we have our
initial piecing,
right? Basically what we're going to do is we're going to start by taking our 17 pieces that we had and turn it into 8, because 8's a lot easier to work with.
So I'm going to make an assumption here.
Yeah.
And assume that I'm going to trim along that line
and
that line.
Kind of. Okay. But only one trim at a time.
That would make sense.
Because what we're going to do is we're going to trim the 2 sides that we're going to sew together.
Okay.
And I'm going to do one more seam, and then I'm going to show you what I mean by that.
She's gonna tell me what she means.
Liz is going to be a pro at this by the time we're done.
At the moment,
At the moment, she doesn't have a clue
I
what
don't
I'm
have a clue.
doing.
Any more than anybody else does that hasn't
Right?
done this before.
All right, go ahead and press that for me.
Do you want to know the other part about this text print being directional? I know exactly where that piece went without having to
Right?
look
You know,
back at it.
you're like, oh, does it go here? No, it's wrong. It's going the wrong way. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to sew unit B and C together, but I can't sew this jaggedy piece to this one. So what we're going to do is we're going to take my little ruler here, and going off the smaller piece, I'm going to trim. This one I'm just trimming that little tiny bit off. And then this one right here, I'm going to trim a much larger chunk off. But going along that straight edge. And then we have these two pieces. Now, these aren't going to match up perfectly either. So following Janet's method, we go ahead and we just center it.
Okay.
On the smaller piece on top of the larger piece, and sew that together.
Alrighty. That makes sense.
All right, go ahead and press this. Now, normally I would sew this to this next, but we all know Jen's a chain piecer, so I'm going to sew these two together. This one is already really very straight. I'm only going to trim off a hair. But this one is not. So I'm going to trim this edge right here, aligning my ruler with
The smaller piece. The straight
smaller
line on the
piece.
smaller piece.
because we can't align it onto this one. There's nothing to trim.
Yep.
And then I've got these two nice straight lines that'll match up. And I just center it on there as best I can.
That's
And
gonna
go.
be pretty darn
Now
close.
this is not about perfection. All of my turn dashes have turned out slightly different so far. And that's kind of the fun of it.
That's the idea, though. This is a wonky project.
It's supposed to
We
be.
want it to end up flat, but wonky is good.
Right. Right. We want it to be flat.
That's the point of the trimming and whatnot is to not have those puckers and those.
Well, and all the bulk.
The
We
bulk.
really have to have straight lines to sew them together. This isn't a curves project. And I've never really sewn jagged edges together.
It would be,
Nor do I
be
want
hard
to.
to keep a straight line, and then you end up with waves and ripples. And trimming is good. Ooh, look how cute. Okay, so am I right making the assumption that I'm going to trim
Yes,
that line?
you're going to trim that line, and then you're going to trim the top of this.
Yeah.
And that one, we're actually going to have a piece to match
You even going to figure this out?
so that the turn dash corners meet up. I'm going to teach Liz how to do this.
Like that. Oh, yep. See,
Just like that.
we have our matchy point right here.
Yep, right there.
Clearly, right? We can see this.
Yep. So just lay them on top of each other and have them match up about a quarter of an inch.
A pin right there, right?
Yes. If you want to see where it's going to go, this one's pretty straight, so
The
it's
turn
easy.
dash
Some
that's
of
outside
them-
the square block.
Some of
in
them will
center.
be more angled. You can just kind of fold this down, and I want this seam to line up a quarter of an inch down from the top. Again, perfection isn't necessary here because it's supposed to be wonky. But you know, I have to be obsessive about something,
Yes, she does.
so it doesn't work out for me otherwise.
I'm not gonna work ahead because I don't know what the next step is.
All right, this goes on to that one.
Okay, that I can do. This is actually fun. It's like foundation paper piecing. But
It kind
no
of
paper.
is, but without the paper.
I assumed it was gonna have to be like perfection station, like.
Right? And
Yes.
it's not. This isn't about being totally perfect.
So these were both straight lines, you guys, but once they're sewn together,
one's a little off
one's a little off.
because it was
So-
at an angle.
So trim it anyway.
I have a big pile of like little fuzz trimmings at home on my table. I'm gonna have to clean out my cutting mat when I'm done.
Right.
I'm such a dork. I keep a eraser, one of the big school erasers on my cutting station because that's how cutting mat when I'm done.
Right.
I'm such a dork. I keep an eraser works really well. Eraser, one of the big school erasers on my cutting station because that's how I clean the fuzz out of my mat.
That's smart.
Let's see if you can figure out the next one. I'll trim it off.
Does it connect to the bottom of the
They're
house?
like 40 cents.
The side.
That's what I meant.
The side, the edge.
The bottom. Whatever you want to call
One
it.
of them. It's wonky. There's really no top or bottom, except in this block there is, because there's a text background print and that needs to go up.
But in all the ones that don't have a texty print,
Right. Then there's no top or bottom.
then it doesn't matter. Now, I could understand pre-starching this.
I can totally get
Or
pre-starching
at least best pressing
it wouldn't hurt to best press or
Before you
starch
cut.
your fabrics really well
Before you start
cutting because we have
broken
broken
the
the
grain
grain
all
all
over
over
on
on
this
this
project.
So
they
they
do
do kind of
kinda
want
want
to
to
pull a little. You need to trim that.
I know. I was just looking
looking
at it before I trimmed it.
Oh, that's a good idea.
See,
So it really it should be something you do. It's to at least use some best press faultless, preferably something give it a good starch before you start cutting into it because it's gonna want to stretch on you because we've totally broken the grain. We're doing nothing with the grain here.
So we have another matchy point.
Yep.
Because it's our turn dash. So you see this, for these 2 points, we want to line those two up.
Now, this is one I was mentioning earlier. Because we're at a nice angle here, if I have the top point matched up, when I come down, it's gonna be off almost a full 1/4 of an inch. So I want to go ahead, and scoot that over,
Match what matters.
and I'm pinching my fingernail right here about a 1/4 of an inch down and flipping it down to make sure it's in the right place.
Mhm.
It doesn't have to be perfect, but it's nice not to be off a full 1/4 of an inch.
This is true. Okay, I'm just going to assume that this one needs to get trimmed in a straight line.
Yeah.
Okay. Because...
See, it is intuitive. Once you figure out what
That's
you're
not
doing
straight.
here, it does become fairly intuitive as to how the
So these
pieces
are
go
6.5
together.
inch blocks?
Yeah, that's why I brought a 6.5 inch square.
You're being smart.
To square it up. So much easier than trying to measure with a mat or a ruler. Just put the square over the top of it and call it a day.
Where's the top? Third. I was going to say half, but it's not half.
Right.
Okay. We'll press and trim, get this guy.
Yep. And then we'll finish it.
Wow.
They really are easier than they look.
This could totally be done chain piece too.
Yeah.
Although I don't think I'd get too crazy. Then it loses the fact that it's already organized.
having a couple.
I do like 4 at a time.
So I've been doing one of these with these so that I go back and forth and I'm not using the same piece and getting confused about which block it goes with.
it's like your foundation paper piecing, chain piecing.
Right. And since there's the same number of blocks, it works really well to do one and one.
Every other.
Yeah.
Wait, so there's our bottom.
Now
Third.
this may match just right. It may be way off. You're not gonna know.
You see that?
It's really gonna depend on a lot of factors. In her diagram, she does have this piece bigger than this one down here. So it doesn't match up corner to corner perfectly. So she doesn't expect that you're going to. Some of mine have, and that's been lucky. Some of them haven't, and they've been way off. Either way, don't worry about it. It's supposed to be wonky.
Split the difference.
Split the difference. I'm going to lay this over the top. I'm going to put my fingers right here about a 1/4 of an inch down and flip it over and get an idea of where my seams are meeting up. And I'm just going to smoosh it over a little bit to the left. Nudge it, something like that. Pin a couple points on here. I am pinning more on these blocks than I normally would, and that's because everything's across the grain. And
It's so easy to pull and stretch fabric when it's not cut straight of grain. And so in order to
especially
avoid that,
the wovens.
especially wovens, yes. So in order to avoid that, and I'm not a heavy pinner, y'all know that.
I'm pinning more than normal.
Yes.
So I wouldn't I wouldn't put the pin bowl far away for this project.
Although she's missing it every single time.
Am I? Well, it's too far away then.
You drop pins in the table.
Whoops.
Okay, I'll forgive you.
My bad. All right, there you go.
Move your little board so you can trim this sucker.
Yep. Anyway, this is a really fun project for when you're not feeling like being exact.
When you don't want to measure and trim 8,000
That was a lot of half square triangles to trim up.
I'm doing a whole half square triangle one today.
I have another quilt that has just as many on my work table. So this is a nice relief from that one. Because it really is, I don't want to say mindless sewing, but it definitely takes a lot less.
So the fun part about this, you guys, is our turn dash got way smaller. And so unlike normal trimming, where our points are going to be 1/4 of an inch from the edge of the block, we don't want to lose our points, there's no risk of losing your points in this one.
No, honestly, like when I've trimmed all of mine, I've had about 1/2 inch from
so
the
we
furthest
can take
point.
this 6.5 inch ruler, and honestly, we could turn it this way or
right,
whatever.
you could pivot how you trim it. I've just kind of found an equal distance from the farthest point to the edge.
Somewhat
Most
centered.
of them are somewhere around 1/2 inch.
Yep.
And then I just trim all the way around. And then it looks like a nice finished block that you worked really hard on. But it's
And we only cut 2 directions.
only cut 2 directions.
Because Jen and I have both lost fingertips.
I mean, they grew back.
Yes, but I don't recommend.
We've both cut off significant portions of our fingers with rotary cutters.
No risky cutting, okay, you guys?
Don't be dumb. It's not good.
And we're done.
Here you
And
go.
it's a cute little block that started out the size of this board and is no longer that size.
Right. Well, that's the funny thing. I used my
Wow, those matched pretty perfectly on the top.
I used my even bigger boards for this, and
They're
about
going to
the
end
same
up this
amount to
size
trim.
too.
There's
But
a
that's
lot
more
of trimming
pieces.
that comes with this one, but it's really fun. This one works like a log cabin. Piece 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
5, 6, 7.
That
No,
No,
6,
I was
7. You
right.
were right. You were right.
I've made one.
I guess so. I'm just looking at it.
Anyway, so it becomes kind of intuitive as to how it goes. You can always lay them back down. I'm going to put in another plug for design boards because these are awesome. I brought the entire quilt all cut out
In a stack.
in a
like
stack like this with one of my empty design boards on top so that things wouldn't blow away. And it's really nice to be able to travel with my entire quilt like this. So,
Because this is the empty one. It's also the bent one. If you're going to travel with design boards, you don't put the batting or the flannel part down. You put this
you
part
put
down.
the foam core part down so that it doesn't pick your pieces up.
Grab a couple big
When
rubber
you're walking.
bands, and it's ready to go.
Right?
It's kind of awesome. Anyway, so this is Crazy One Sister.
One crazy sister.
One Crazy Sister. This is normal One Sister.
Same gal.
Same
just
lady.
when
just
she's
because of
not
her
being
mood.
crazy.
But both really fun projects.
Really fun color palettes. It's
Very
really
autumnal.
traditional, but some nice brights and
Yes.
really fun prints on them. So not quite as reproduction-ish as a lot of traditional
without
fabrics
being
are.
reproduction. How's that?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Okay. Anyway, thanks for joining us. We'll see you
We'll see you next time.
week where we're gonna talk Halloween.
Yeah,
It'll be fun.
it'll be great.
Bye.
And more weird piecing.
And more weird piecing. See
See
ya.
you later.